This episode contains descriptions of violence and death. We advise listener discretion.
Everything was about her family. She loved them. She really did love her kids.
Among those living on Magnolia Court back in July of 2015, one neighbor, Maggie Jacobson, seemed to have had the most contact with April Bever. Their children played together, and April shared parts of her life, especially about her youngest daughter.
She was born early, so I talked to April a lot about that she just had some medical issues.
That interview was obtained through a process that we refer to in news as door knocking. That's where you go from house to house, trying to talk to anyone who might have seen or heard something or simply knew the family beyond the headline.
I always saw the kids out in the backyard just mowing the lawn. It didn't seem like it was a bad family or anything.
The kids would do some yard work and they'd be outside from time to time. My son's the same age as their oldest, but they never played together.
Neighbors all seemed to say the exact same thing, that the Bevers kept to themselves. Only one woman seemed to offer something different. She told my colleague, Bert Mumolo, that her daughter knew Robert.
He was very sweet, very kind.
Very sweet and very kind. The description wasn't exactly what I was expecting to hear, and neither was this.
Loved his family, even walked to Walmart to buy him Christmas presents from here, which is quite a ways.
But nowhere near as far as the journey from loving son to convicted murderer. That image, a teenage boy walking miles just to buy gifts for his family, is a world away from the one we now know.
Police have just released this mugshot of 18-year-old Robert Bever, the eldest son. He and his 16-year-old brother are under arrest for the 5 murders.
I asked Robert if he remembered that woman, and he said he didn't recognize her name, but he thought he might have worked with her daughter. And he confirmed what she said about the Christmas gifts for his family.
People can change. I changed into a homicidal maniac in about the time of year, and then I changed even further to that into whatever I was in the intervening years. And now I feel like I'm back to normal as I can be.
I'm Brenna Rose, and this is Massacre on Magnolia Court, Episode 5, The Bevers. Long before they ever settled on Magnolia Court, records show that David Bever and April Sharp were married in Grayson County, Texas. That was in January of 1987. April was just 15 years old when she became Mrs. Bever. Her new husband was 24. Documents filed in Michael's case say that she left school in the 8th grade to get married. Decades later, and in an online posting, she looked back on that choice, writing, "Parents had to sign a form, was not pregnant, still married to the same guy and 7 kids later. Not letting my daughter, but it worked for us." The family's world has been difficult to access, which has only deepened the mystery surrounding this case. I had wondered if it would even be possible to track down extended family members. If you'll remember from episode 2, it did take officers a while to do so, even though Michael had tried to offer names.
Do you guys have any other family that lives here?
Lives in Florida and works in Greenfield.
I did find one relative. She lives in another state, but she never called me back. According to those same court filings, the Bevers had cut off contact with most family members in 2012, 3 years before the murders, and for reasons that were never made clear. There's a feeling of evasiveness to all of this, trying to put together pieces of a family's life through the traces that they left on the internet, court documents, and interviews. There are very few photos of this family online, almost nothing that shows who they were, which makes the very few glimpses that we do have carry more weight. Robert says they'd sometimes go bowling.
I take this 14-pound ball, just lug it down there and go strike. It was fun. And that's what I did on my last day with my brothers and sisters, would watch them bowl.
Can you imagine the kids laughing? That simple thrill that younger siblings get from being included by their older ones. And can you see the ball gliding down the lane, gaining speed? a quiet echo of a much darker plan that was already unfolding. I wish I could paint a fuller picture of their lives. It's unsettling to realize that I know far more about how 3 children lost their lives than how they actually lived. The children's father, David Bever, was 52 years old and he worked in IT. A former coworker in the late 90s told me that he often overheard David calling home and his wife would put 1-year-old Robert on the phone. He recalled the tenderness in David's voice, how he'd say, "Hey, buddy," and how proud he seemed of his son. As for April Bever, her Pinterest page, which is still visible online, is filled with everyday inspirations. There's crockpot recipes, gardening tips, and DIY projects. Her other online activity offers glimpses of how she saw her family, describing her children as amazing people, adding that the world will benefit by having them in it. She's also understood to have taken on a large role in preparing her children for the world by homeschooling them.
Why were you homeschooled?
I was molested in preschool, and my parents pulled me out and said they're never doing school again. They even threatened to send me to school when I was doing bad, and I'd cry, "No, I don't want to go to school."
He gave that very same explanation under oath at Michael's trial. Filings in Michael's case described the family's homeschooling as unaccredited and poorly supervised.
I had to take care of the kids. My mom needed help. I was kind of like the third parent in the house, and I had a lot of responsibilities, and so it just became more important because, Autumn was born prematurely, and so my mom couldn't spend any time on anything else except her, and so I was watching the other kids.
He's referring to 5-year-old Victoria, 7-year-old Christopher, 12-year-old Daniel, 13-year-old Crystal, and 16-year-old Michael. Robert says they mostly ate peanut butter sandwiches and ramen noodles, something Crystal confirmed on the stand. I also think it's important to mention what investigators did find in the family's fridge. There was a cake with Minnie Mouse on it for the youngest child's upcoming birthday.
Some of the other kids were so innocent that they didn't know what was going on, not just with me, but with our parents. They lived in this happy little world where they could just play all the time. They didn't even have to go to school.
I want to go back to your childhood. Can you describe it to me? When you look at it now, how was it?
If anybody cares to understand, it could have been me. It might not have been anything wrong with my parents. I was traumatized by my parents as a small child. They made no sense to me. And in some ways they still don't, but I don't really want to talk about that.
Is there a reason why you don't want to talk about what happened with your parents?
For my sister's sake, Crystal and Autumn, I'm not going to make them ever hear from me that I had a problem with our parents when I took them away from her and I killed them.
It's hard to talk about certain aspects of this case, especially because the people at the center of the allegations are not here to respond. None of this information excuses what happened or assigns blame to the victims, but it may help offer context. According to Robert, his dad spent much of his time locked away in his home office. Court documents note that David worked from home as a database engineer, but had lost his job before the homicides and, despite financial hardship, regularly gambled at casinos and lost. And according to documents that were filed in Michael's appeal, they grew up in isolation because Mr. and Mrs. Bever were paranoid about strangers. The family would sometimes go months without leaving their residence, and the children were told to stay away from the windows. Hours after the crime, this is what Robert told detectives.
You say you weren't allowed to leave the house. What do you mean by that?
They didn't like me going anywhere without a good reason. They wouldn't let me get my driver's license. So I was in the house all the time. Nobody left the house unless Mom went to the store to buy my groceries. My dad only left the house once or twice a week.
He says he had virtually no contact with the outside world until the age of 14. That's when he got a job at a call center and started attending a youth court program.
It was to train teenagers to grow up to be lawyers. And it was fun. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for this, the kind of daily chit-chat that you get at school.
It was a first small brush with the legal system before his own actions would bring him back to it in a very different way. Broken Arrow detective Eric Bent says investigators really struggled to understand this family's isolation.
We didn't really find a reason for that. There wasn't some sort of fanatical church thing. There really was no explanation for that. So I don't know why they were like that, why his parents were like that, or why they didn't get out more and do things. They were all homeschooled, but homeschooling is not, there's nothing bad about it. That, you know, people that homeschool their kids typically have other ways to socialize them and keep them involved with, you know, peers and things like that. And this wasn't the case with them.
And for the very first time, there's new insight into why the Bever family might have lived so shut off from the world. Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler, who prosecuted this case, told me he believes there might have been an underlying reason for that isolation. Here's what he had to say.
Did you ever figure out why this family was isolated?
The best I know is April, when she was young, I think we were talking about it, about 15 years old, had been a victim of sexual abuse down in Florida. As I gather from the records and from family members, that victimization was pretty bad. She met who became her husband, David. I think he was a good 10 years older than her when they first made contact. It seems to me what they decided to do was just escape the hellhole that was down in Florida with all that abuse and start a family life up in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And that's what ended up happening, I think. They very much isolated themselves, probably to the point of, you know, we can't trust anybody, but we can trust each other. I think that's the environment that all these children were growing up in.
He believes that generational trauma might have shaped how April and David approached the world around them.
It is such a deep violation of trust, especially if it's familial. You got a family member doing it to you, or maybe a close neighbor or something. That violation of trust kind of forces those victims into very much a private, who do I trust? If I can't trust this person, can I trust that person who is a caretaker, a provider, or a friend? So I think that victimization resulted in isolation in their instances, probably out of self-preservation. That's the way it seemed like to me. It is. It turns out it had just devastating consequences if that was indeed what was going on in the household. That's my best explanation for why they kind of kept to themselves.
But according to him, Robert still had room to move outside of the home.
He was allowed to go get a job. He was allowed to go up to the library. He was allowed to go out on vacation. But something triggered, it appears in his head, that he was, for lack of a better word, not feeling free enough to be able to move on with his life. I think he had every opportunity to do that.
But access alone doesn't answer a bigger question. Did Robert have the coping skills? He describes an early conflict that he encountered at the call center.
My quality control scores started going down because I'd been kind of snotty and sassy and rude to a quality control agent, and she started failing my calls.
And there's another layer to this family's story. Court filings describe an environment where, when April or David took the kids out in public, the kids were under strict orders not to speak to anybody or make eye contact with anybody outside of the family. A violation of that order would result in verbal and physical abuse once they got home. Robert describes what he says discipline looked like to investigators back in 2015.
I forgot to turn off the light in the game room upstairs before I came down, so my dad grabbed me by the shirt and he picked me up and he dragged me up the stairs and he threw me on the ground. He was like, that costs money.
Why didn't you ever like call the police or something?
About 3 years ago, my mom slapped me so hard, I left cuts down both my cheeks, and I took pictures on my phone, and I had the lady from youth services in my contacts. okay, I gotta end this. But I didn't send it because I was like, no, someday I'm gonna take care of this myself.
I asked Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler what, if anything, emerged during the investigation. Robert talked about this to police that night. Did you ever find any evidence of abuse?
So, our best source would be talking with Crystal. She really didn't talk about really witnessing anything. I think eventually it came out that she talked about a moment or two where Dad might have been physically aggressive with the older brothers. I think she described some instance where the dad kind of shoved Robert up against some cabinets or something in the kitchen. But nothing ever came out to my knowledge where, it was like some kind of backroom beatings on a daily basis, or there was never anything about some kind of sexual victimization. That never came out.
There's also a few other things that raise questions, like cameras.
Is it go to a computer or something like that?
I don't think it was being recruited, no. Just live.
Do you not have, so is there a TV where you can watch it somewhere?
Yeah, my dad watches it on his phone. He has an app to watch it on his phone.
According to court filings, David installed 4 surveillance cameras inside of the home. It's alleged that they were used to monitor the Bever children.
I think they had surveillance cameras, but to my recollection, really weren't recording. I'm almost grateful they weren't.
If you remember, that was a point of contention and something that was brought up by the defense in the last episode. It's not known if anyone saw alarming behavior on them leading up to that night in July of 2015. And listening back to my interview with Robert, I realized there were other unknowns too with his job. I'm not sure if he quit or just stopped showing up and was eventually fired. Did his parents see it as normal growing pains, or did it create strain inside of the home?
J.K. Rowling once said that your ticket to blame who you are on your parents expires once you turn 18 or when you're an adult, or whatever she said. When I was 18, my parents were already trying to push me out of the house. I didn't have a driver's license. I had nowhere to go.
And where he turned next was the internet.
I had over 50 Facebook accounts.
Those accounts were part of a larger, virtual world that he lived in, a world of games, movies, and online spaces that appear to have pushed him further away from reality. We'll explore that further next time on Massacre on Magnolia Court.